admire somebody like this stooge. Katy Perry is going to be sitting in her luxury, 20-bedroom house in Los Angeles, sipping on the finest wine, while you join a military where they don't even keep the bathrooms working on the aircraft, and they have all sorts of lice infestations, and where they have one doctor per 1,000 Marines in the hospital, when in World War II it was one doctor per 50, and you're going to be having your arms and legs cut off instead of doing surgery if there's an infection. You're going to be injected with deadly vaccines. You're going to be used as a guinea pig. You're not going to get your death benefits if you're killed. You're going to be absolutely used in these imperial wars. And you're going to be used as a camp prostitute by the men, on average, that are in the military. Just record numbers of rapes going on. You're going to breathe depleted uranium that was illegal to use until about 22 years ago, that they know reduces your lifespan by a massive amount. And as you die decades later from the deadly vaccines, the cancer viruses, the DU, you're not going to be given medical treatment. So as they implode the economy, they are now selling women joining the military. Here's the final analysis. Join the military in a man-hating exercise when you're actually going to go into a world dominated by men. And you're going to be basically a camp slave of the men who run the New World Order. Okay, so that's what's going on here. And it targets women loving to put makeup on, so it subliminally puts that in. Again, it shows her choking the man underwater. It's all a man-hating exercise. But when you actually get into the military, you're going to find out that's not what it is. This is the most cold-blooded, sickening, Marine Corps-financed, cynical fraud you could ever imagine. And it's about forcing giant numbers of women into the military to actually change its culture and to change the culture of women. Now, I want to give you some background information on what's been done to women in the past. Edward Bernays, who's the father of modern advertising and propaganda, he literally wrote the book Propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, on record, the Nazi propaganda minister, used a lot of his information and twisted it to his own designs. Bernays was the chief psychological warfare expert for more than 20 years, advising the Department of War. He advised them to call it defense. Don't be honest anymore. Call it the Department of Defense, because you're actually going to run giant imperial slaughter operations. He's the guy, they couldn't sell pork bellies because they were seen as trash meat, bacon. So he ran a nationwide campaign saying, women, your husband doesn't know best, you know best. Women all know that pork bellies, bacon, has to be had with eggs. Women know best. So women all ran out and got pork bellies that had only been used to flavor soups and things in the past. Throw a piece of bacon in with your green beans to flavor them so that they could jack up the price of pork bellies. Women totally bought it. See, Hitler said, first you get the women, then you've got the children, so follow the men. 80+% of advertising targets women because women make most of the purchases. And if you can get the women, it's not that women are stupid. It's that women are the core of the family, the household, and the civilization. And so if you can get women, you've got the children. So follow the men. And so Hitler, of course, got that from Joseph Goebbels, who got it from Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was hired by the tobacco companies and paid millions of dollars a year to target women, millions in 1920s money, because women saw it as unladylike to smoke cigarettes. And they said, look, half the market is not smoking cigarettes. By the way, they knew back then it was creating lung cancer. They even talked about, hey, this will reduce population as well. I mean, they knew 100 years ago it was giving people cancer. They were doing rat studies over 100 years ago. And so they ran ads in newspapers and on radio saying, don't let men tell you you can't smoke. Show them you're in charge as a flapper. And they paid all the major women's suffrage groups who just gotten the right to vote and things. They said, smoke your liberty torches. And there's photos of women walking around with their cigarettes, smoking them, saying, I'll smoke one if I want. I'm a lady and I'm in charge and I make my own decisions. Now, again, go back down to that poster right there. And again, I want to show people what that says, because these were put up in subways, they were put up at train stations, they were put up everywhere. An ancient prejudice has been removed. And it goes on to say, it's toasted. Lucky Strikes, you show that man you're in charge. Yeah, you show grandma dying of lung cancer, tens of millions of women dead. Boy, you really showed them, didn't you? A manipulative man gamed you hardcore. You like hating men? Look, the truth is men and women at the slave serf level are being divided from each other because they want Katy Perry to teach your little girls that the state, let's go back to that video, that the state is your man. The state is your beau. Under this system, women owe their allegiance to the state. What did another feminist say close to, 90 years ago in public letters? Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, said, we have got to break up these families. We've got to get women working in these factories. How do we do it? We sell them the idea that they're rebelling against their husband by doing this. Miss Magazine, on record, Gloria Steinem admits, she wrote in one of her books, look it up, that she was hired by the CIA to go in and to get women to say, raising your kids isn't good. Being at home, the most important area of the life, isn't important. Go to work. That way they can tax the man and the woman. That way the state gets the children. That way they can break down normal human culture and make the state God. Margaret Sanger went on, look this up, to break down how they had to get women to see men as the enemy. And again, she went on to say, we'll use blacks because they're the weakest group, they're the poorest group, they're the most institutionalized group. At that time, just being 70 years or so out of slavery in the 1860s. She said, what we'll do is just like we had the old system of the women were brought into the house. You're getting the big secret of feminism right now. Just like the house slave was always a woman and the men were kept out in the barn and weren't allowed to read or write, we're going to set women up as the minders of society again. There's actually Roman handbooks on this from 2,000 years ago where they talk about, with white slaves at that time, mainly from Western Europe, you bring in the slaves, you kill a couple of the men in front of the women, you even kill some of the kids, and you tell the women, it's your job to keep these men in line or we're going to kill all of you. And they found that women, believing they were protecting people, would become incredible oppressors and tattletales over the men. And then within a few generations, they started enjoying the oppression and didn't even do it to, quote, protect the men. And I was reading about how they retranslated those Roman documents from Latin into French and then into English by the 1820s or so in the sugarcane plantations. I'm giving you history here. Heavy truth, folks. The sugarcane plantations of the Caribbean, they would bring a ship of slaves in. Already half of them on average from Africa would have died in the trip over because they didn't really feed them from Africa. And they'd get them off the coffin ship, and then they would kill the most well-spoken, obvious leader, just from body language and things, of the blacks that was alive in front of the women. They'd beat their brains out, or they would hang them. And they'd tell the women, we're going to kill all your male children if you don't keep everybody in line. Is that understood? And they found the women would do whatever they were told. So that's where you get the mammy in all the Three Stooges movies and stuff, bossing the black guys around, and in all the old movies that are still, representing what really happened in history, where the black woman is in charge, and she's got the big mammy outfit on, Aunt Jemima, and she's in there telling those black men, you do what you're told. In fact, in this culture, it got so dominant that my father, when he would pick cotton, and he did pick cotton, even though he came from a middle-class family, he was sent out to pick cotton, that he would go out and pick cotton on adjacent farms, and that they had groups of black people out there picking the cotton. And do you know who the bosses were? Giant, powerful black women. And they were even bossing the poor whites around. Now, that's what my dad grew up in East Texas. And my dad's only, what, 63 years old, okay? My dad grew up with a black woman foreman telling the poor whites what to do. Now, that is that culture, ladies and gentlemen. And I've read in the history diaries about breeding programs in this country where they would actually single out the most aggressive, largest black women. This goes back 200 years. You can look this up. This is the history you're not supposed to know, to be the dominant people. So that's all Katy Perry and all this is. That's what feminism is. In fact, there's Margaret Sanger to the KKK. Show them that. That's powerful. In fact, we'll give people a full screen of that. I'm begging you, that's a real photo, to look into this now. When your wife comes home and dresses you down and tells you she's the boss, she's reading government propaganda developed in Rome 2,000 years ago to make women the slave masters. They call them the house slaves. They have an obnoxious term when it's blacks. The house, you know what's. And so let me expand on this, giving you the deep truth here. That's why in the 60s, blacks were demanding their liberty, because they'd gone to war in World War II. They had their own communities, their own wealth. Illegitimacy was much lower than it is now. Crime rates much lower. And they said, Margaret Sanger and others had developed the program. They said, what we'll do is we'll get them on welfare, and we'll tell them, you can't have a man in the house, they'll give you money. And we'll reinstitute the house slave model. And that's what they've created now. And black men are told, just like white men, everybody else, to be lethargic, don't work, be a gangster, just get women pregnant all day, that you're winning when you do that, when you don't take care of your kids. This is now being exported back where it came from with German and Gaulish slaves in Rome 2,000 years ago. Started out with whites. This was done to whites. And now it's being done to blacks, and now they've beta tested it on blacks, and they're rolling it out. So Margaret Sanger, Gloria Steinem, the idiot Katy Perry doesn't know what she's doing. She's just paid by the Marines to do this, so does it. I mean, she's obviously doesn't have, you know, two brain cells rubbed together.